Time now for Front and Center. And if you're just joining us, my name is Olive Burrows. I'm sitting in for Ben Kitili. And in studio with me, we have Arnold Maliba, who is a public policy analyst. We also have Fanya Mambo Kinuthia, and he has confirmed that that is indeed the name on his ID. But he says, Tume Mpesa. And you can confirm that way. We also have joining us from our Eldoret studio, one Mark Bichachi, a communication strategist. Mark, I saw you in that report by Melito Letenge speaking to the president and his deputy being out of the country. In fact, Arnold showed me an image of Wetangula, the National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula, saying this is the man in charge. But back to the topic at hand, and we're looking at Ruto's scorecard. A to F, where would you grade the first year of the William Ruto administration, Arnold?
A to F, where A is what?
A is excellent, F is dismal.
I will give them a B+.
A B+?
Yes.
On what grounds?
There's so much I could actually go through. I don't know whether you have got time.
Okay, tell me why not an A. Let's start there.
Is because there's always room for an improvement. It's only been a year. A B+ is a good grade. Looking at the circumstances from where they've come from, but I think there's just so much I could list, from the economy, from what we have in the security sector, in the education sector. Like, for example, they've brought in 56,000 teachers. That is the single largest recruitment of teachers in this country's history, for example. Looking at housing, for all the time Jubilee was in government, I think they did about 10,000 units. He's launched 38,000 plus. We're expecting 44 million bags of maize from the over 3.5 bags of fertilizer that were given out there. And I could go on and on and on. The list is so big, but because we are quite a quarrelsome country and a noisy household, people might not know that we are doing very well. We are eating chapo and everything is okay because there's too much quarrel.
Really? Yeah. Really? Tunakula chapo?
Yeah, kuna chapo kiasi yake. Yeah. You know, we no longer do chapo siku za Christmas. Iko tu hata kama ni Saturdays, lakini see, we don't have to wait mpaka siku ya Christmas, but because we are a quarrelsome home, a little bit of this goes lost out. But there's so much if we were to go into absolute numbers. Okay. Yeah.
So Arnold says not an A because there's always room for improvement. He sounds like a mean grader. But how about you, Fanya Mambo?
To start with, a very good evening to all our viewers and to you, and thank you for having me on this show. I'd like to say the alphabet has 26 letters. I don't know why you limited us to the first very few, because I probably would have gone to other letters within the alphabet. And the Sheng alphabet even has more than 26, so it would stretch beyond the F that you're giving us. I would do that because, first and foremost, you should have given him water. You know he's struggling. Defending this government is a lot of work. So coffee alone is not enough. It is good to always, as much as possible, give this person a lot of water, because he has a lot of work to do in trying to defend a government as difficult as this one. But there's only one thing I would say.
Wait, so you say you're going beyond F?
Yeah, of course, of course, definitely. If the alphabet had more numbers than 26, I would still go to those other numbers.
Why is that?
But there's only one thing.
Different Kenyas?
Yes, there's only one thing I would like to say that is positive about this administration. The fact that this nation has managed to maintain itself as a beacon of peace in a region that is volatile and nations are having violent upheavals. And, you know, most developments happen in an environment of peace. You know, the fact that relatively I can be able to move from town and get home without necessarily being mugged means we have a nation that has managed to maintain peace in a way or the other. That is a beautiful thing, and I must commend our security forces and the government itself for giving us a peaceful nation. But beyond that, because we shall be discussing the rest, I will explain why I think F is a generous score. And when someone talks about importing 44 million bags of maize, I'll tell you I have a problem. And because we're just making introductory remarks, let me not take so much time on.
All right, you leave it there for now. For now, I make a pause. I make a pause. Hiya. Do we have Mark Bichachi? All right. So Mark, we're just sorting out your sound. I will get your grade shortly. But Arnold, there was a TIFA research poll whose results were released yesterday, I believe it was. And I sat down with Tom Wolf, and he said for him it was surprising that compared to June, more people are actually expressing what he defined as mild optimism. More people than in June. Still, the majority believe the country is moving in the wrong direction, but more people than in June, the poll they did in June, believe the country is moving in the right direction. He said he was surprised. Are you surprised?
Well, just first of all, to clear.
And the reason, just for purposes of not unfairly painting his remarks, you would imagine the Finance Act and EU Shuru would have done some damage, and that's why he expressed some surprise. But yes, your response.
Okay, I just needed to, first of all, clear. I said that as a country, we're expecting a harvest of 44 million.
Not importation.
We are not importing. Last year, we had 32 million. We gave out about 3.5 million bags of fertilizer going out there. So that is what I meant. I didn't mean that we were actually importing. So as per Tifa is trying to actually get it right. You know, last year, all opinion polls were living in a world like the one he's living in. You know, like where this is the scale that exists, but then you are looking for something else that is not there. And it also is actually very representative of the side that probably he represents and stands on. He has not declared, but then definitely one would actually point towards that end. So generally, people are appreciating where we've come from. First of all, it's not easy to run a country like Kenya. It's easy, that, like I've told you, we are quite a quarrelsome nation. We are a very good people, friendly and everything else, but we are not easy people to govern. As a country, with the kind of constitution we have in this particular region, it's not easy. So you have got a liberal people, you have got an empowered people. I know people sometimes want to paint Kenyans as people who are ignorant. I saw somebody, actually, and I think it's him, who spoke about people not being empowered enough, not to have the agency to make decisions for themselves. You would be surprised that if you were to compare with our people who are at the same level with us, we really have done very well. And it's not actually very good to paint Kenyans as people who are clueless. This country, in and of itself, rolls largely on the cogs of these people that you think might not really know what they are doing. So we are where we are largely because, number one, of the people of Kenya. Number two, of course, governments have actually contributed. So it's not true that Kenyans are clueless. So if Tom Wolf actually feels like he's surprised that there is a mild optimism that is actually coming up, it's only that there is a reality that has been there for the last 1 year. We've got an opposition that is stuck at Bomas. They've really not moved away from there. One day they say, okay, we recognize them. The other day we don't. So that particular bit, it's a small mountain that half of the nation, not really half, but a few people are stuck around that mountain. And they need to break that camp and actually proceed to the promised land. Like the rest of us who are now crossing over to Jordan. We are crossing Jordan to the other side, realizing that this is our reality, this is where we are, and then looking at the efforts. Like I told you, if you were to actually just go down and see what has been done, over and above the nations that are there, and of course, the freedom of speech and conscience that we have, that allow people to actually think of, as in, and you're free, by the way, to think like nothing is happening, there's nothing good. Only generally, there are guys, I don't know where you have been alive.
Tumezoea ile show yangu ya live na inakuanga na 2 hours. Hii haina hiyo 2 hours. Allow me to at least get Mark Bichachi's grade before we have to take a break. And I will come back for you to continue sharing your sentiments. Mark Bichachi, A to F. Where would you grade the Kenya Kwanza first year in office?
In terms of keeping their election and campaign promises, I would give them a solid C. In terms of engaging the public and keeping their momentum up in terms of being available and approachable, you have to give them a solid A-. In terms of fighting corruption, you must give them a solid B because they fired up yes faster than she could blink. So it's a mixed bag for me, and it depends on where you're looking at it. If you look at foreign affairs, for example, dicey. They started on the wrong foot, and they only salvaged themselves recently during the climate conference.
All right, so he says mixed bag. And Mark, I'm going to ask you 2 questions sequentially because you missed the first round, if you'll allow me, Fanya Mambo. And my second question to you is this: mild optimism is what Tifa research analyst, and that is Tom Wolf, said was is what the findings show, that there is some mild optimism. What do you make of those findings?
Well, I'll tell you this, that the Kenya Kwanza government has perfected the idea of communicating vehemently to Kenyans. You see the president, his deputy are in the news every day, talking every day. This is different from Kibaki and Uhuru Kenyatta, who disappear for weeks at a time. So the optimism we are seeing is not really based on the dollar or the cost of unga or the cost of cooking oil in here somewhere in Ruiru. It is cheaper. It's not about that. It's about a government that is communicating better to her people.
All right, so we need to take a break, but we come back with, as you've seen him there, Mark Bichachi, communication strategist. We also have Arnold Maliba, public policy analyst, and Fanya Mambo Kinuthia, who is a lawyer. My name is Olive Burrows, and speaking of Ruiru, Jugush, alisema mimi ni reporter of The Nation. We'll be back on the other side of this break.
This week on The Trend, we have yet another fantastic show lined up just for you.
Let me take a look. Oh Lord, yo, what's up? It's Kenya Ruga out here.
Simsima, who's got the keys to my bima? I'm on another level, ni akili tunapima. Guess she.
Osoro on the socials, DJ E on the decks, hosted by yours truly. It is bound to be one heck of a show, and we want you to check it out. Make sure that you hang out with us from 10 p.m. on Friday, only on XTV.
We are calling you to be part and parcel of the fastest growing satellite town in this city. We are developing and building a beautiful Achievers Gate. This is a chance that you cannot afford to miss. Call this number 0790 300 300.
Yarn in a Minute, brought to you by Nivea Nourishing Cocoa Body Lotion.
Mbona unakaa kama umechoka? Why do you look exhausted? Are you tired of people constantly asking you why you look exhausted, yet you regularly drink water and sleep 8 hours a day? Panic. Solution is simple. There are many great tips for achieving hydrated and radiant skin. However, there's only one sure short solution: establishing a daily skincare routine with Nivea Nourishing Cocoa Body Lotion, which has a combination of natural cocoa butter and vitamin E. The rich, creamy formula provides deep and long-lasting moisture while smoothing away dullness. You can also add regular exfoliation, cleansing, and sunscreen to your skincare routine. Glowing skin has never had a simpler solution. My name is Emma, and this is Learn in a Minute.
Yarn in a Minute, brought to you by Nivea Nourishing Cocoa Body Lotion.
With 5-in-1 Complete Care, the deeply nourishing formula prevents your skin from drying with precious cocoa butter and deep moisture for smooth and healthy looking skin.
Finally released from pain. That moment when you start to get back to ordinary, and ordinary feels amazing. Whatever pain you're going through, release starts here.
Benefits of ordering with Glovo. Glovo allows you to order anything you want at the comfort and convenience of your home. Craving fried chicken or pilau or pizza? Easy and simple. Order on Glovo today. Glovo. Order anything, we deliver in minutes.
With Glovo, you've got the city at your fingertips. Unajisikia kukula kitu different? Order Glovo. Ama treat the family with a sweet surprise. Download Glovo and get anything you want in minutes.
You're watching Front and Center. My name is Olive Burrows, sitting in for Ben Kitili. We have Arnold Maliba, public policy analyst in studio, trying to wrap. And we also have Fanya Mambo Kinuthia, who is a lawyer as well. And we have joining us from Eldoret, who spoke last, Mark Bichachi, communication strategist. And I had, you know, I was making reference to the mild optimism right before the break that the TIFA research poll indicates. But Fanya Mambo, the reason, or how it was analyzed by the research analyst, is that one, once the Finance Act came into force, not that many people are on pay slips, right? So all this, the clamor we're hearing around NSME, was it the housing levy and all of that, really did not impact that many people. And then number two, they say the stability caused by these bipartisan talks is bearing fruit in that people are now optimistic. And the third reason, I'm trying to recall what the third reason was, but what do you make of that?
To start with, I think I like simplifying things. You know, when we studied law, some of us got into very complex things.
Oh, yes, sorry, I remembered. Sorry, before I forget. The Africa Climate Summit, that at the point at which they were doing this poll, President William Ruto had emerged as a leader on the African continent, where climate justice is concerned. Yes, sorry for interrupting you.
I think, first and foremost, you're mentioning TIFA and credible results in the same sentence. And there's a problem there because some Azimio adherents, if today were taken to TIFA offices and they were told these are TIFA offices, and it is around Maandamano time, you can imagine what would happen to those offices, because they had been presented with very nice figures about what would happen to their presidential candidate around that time by TIFA. So if it is the same TIFA that we are trusting now for results, then we have a huge problem. But I want to tell you... I
have a response to that because I asked the same question. But continue. And
Infotrack and all the others, let me tell you, if Kenyans were taken to... If some of the supporters of Azimio were taken close to those offices and there happens to be an eclipse or it's dark and there's opportunity to do something funny, they would do a lot of interesting things. So let us not talk about those people because their opinions have led some people to have diabolical ulcers when they think about what they were promised and what happened with the election results. Now, having said that, you see, let's not talk about the performance of this government from very complex things. I have come to learn how to simplify things. I want to take you into a hustler's kitchen. Now, a hustler goes and makes 500 shillings kwa mjengo in one day. That's just one example. And on his way home, he buys a packet of unga at 200 shillings. Now, the bulk of our unga or maize is imported. So let's say 50 shillings has gone to the millers. This person has already sent 150 shillings to another country just by buying unga because the maize was imported. Okay? So a person who toiled so hard to make 500 shillings on this particular day, before they could get home, by virtue of just buying unga, ipso facto, 150 shillings ni kama ametuma na M-Pesa to another country called Brazil or Zambia, because that's where the maize is coming from. Now this person goes home, and when they get home, let's say in a day atatumia tu mafuta ya kupika worth 30 shillings. So ile mafuta ya Moses Kuria, this person has spent another 30 shillings outside of this country from the 500 shillings they earned. Now, most of our kitungu is coming from Tanzania. Let's say one onion is 10 shillings. Sasa ameshamaliza na hiyo, because the only thing that was Kenya there was the boiling water. And then amewasha gas. Let's say on that day, he spent another 20 shillings on just gas for cooking for that day. That person, out of 500 shillings they earned in a day from their hard labor, they have sent 200 shillings out of this country. So the only thing they are making that is from within Kenya is kitoweo, which is worth about 30 or 40 shillings. I think what this administration should be addressing is capital flight. And the simplest way to address capital flight is to go into a hustler's kitchen and ask, by the time you fix a meal, effectively, how much money have you removed from this economy and sent to another economy? And why are we 60 years after independence buying our maize meal from another country other than ourselves? Why are we buying a kitungu from Tanzania? And why are we buying cooking oil from other countries? I think before you address the issue of trying to look for money to put into this economy and all those big jargons they like telling us, because I used to be part of that paradigm and I left, come back to this person you called a hustler and promise them bottom up and ask them, when you fix a meal in a day, how much of your money. So this person has made 500 shillings.
So
and already 240 shillings has gone outside of this country.
You're judging the performance of this administration at the household level.
The performance of this administration has to start from there because they took us to the bottom.
But you know, I'm listening to you and I'm asking, are you laying at the doorstep of Kenya Kwanza the sins of their predecessors? Because this is what they tell us, subsidizing fertilizer. This is an effort to inject some impetus into our agricultural sector. So are you blaming Kenya Kwanza for the sins of those who came before them?
Okay, first and foremost, we are talking of a country that has got a lot of virgin land. From basic agriculture, virgin land sometimes doesn't even need
fertilizer. Harvested, 44 million bags.
Yes, he likes talking of millions.
Even as he speaks about virgin land and everything else, him and I went to school at a time when 14% of this country's land was arable. Today it's only 8%. And it's true, Olive, that if you torture data, data can confess to anything. He speaks about making things easy, but he speaks of loving simplicity, but he gets very complex. Because simplicity is difficult. It's just straight. That's what I actually was saying. That for me today, I wouldn't go into giving opinion. I would just try to look at what has been done and allow it to speak for itself. Because if you're going to go into what he's saying here, he's taken us into some funny economics class, gone on the other side, taken us to the streets, then become very clever as he is, and then he's looking for a way of scoring. Unfortunately, he's behaving like a man who plays for a team I support, a guy called Maguire. A lot of times he ends up scoring on his own end. So, can we look? There's a guy called Maguire. He is in a team I support.
Team Gani.
You know, on the 8th day...
You're the Arsenal.
No, it's not Arsenal. It's actually Manchester United.
Okay, close enough.
Yeah, so I actually just needed to let you know that on the 8th day of creation, God created football, and of course he created Manchester United. And he made Alex Ferguson his soccer prophet. Every other thing are just things that get around there. But once in a while, bad things like Maguire sneak in. But then I wanted to say this, that it's important for us to actually look at absolute numbers. On a day like this, when we are looking at what this administration has been able to do, it's 1 year. Are we able just to score against what they have done? And let's look at the economy, if you would allow me. Number one, there's been stabilization, of course. There's been stabilization of the economy by discontinuing the fuel and food subsidy. You know how much that has actually done? It saves us about 15 billion shillings. I will go back even to Unga that he's speaking about. Number two, the inflation has reduced. That is not witchcraft, it's numbers. Inflation has reduced from 9.18% to 6.7%. Number three, of course, financial independence for the police, for example. Straight away, we've moved away police money being held in Harambee House by a small cocoon. That was a promise that was made. Eventually, we are going to see how it liberalizes police. Do you know that there are police officers who, for example, will get 1,000 shillings for what is called investigation? That money, by the time, and by the way, wanapatiwa kama airtime. Getting that money became so difficult in the last 3, 4, 5 years. We are trying to just ensure that these things work. It takes a little bit of time. So when you hear people who are skeptic like Tom Wolfe say that there is mild, you know, when somebody is negative about you, even if you lied so that they work on you, they will still complain that you are not lying properly. So even with the optimism that is originating from work done, you will still find people coming out negative. So I'll still go around. Judiciary, we appointed the 6 judges. Remember, there had been a lot of drama treated to us about they have said this. You know, in this country, I'll tell you this. If I want to do anything against this man, do you know what I will say? I will simply say the intelligence have refused. And you know, all of you and I have no way of going to the intelligence and telling them, like, for example, have you ever seen a customer care line for NIS? Have you ever seen where they've got a place where kuna opinion box? So if somebody says that we have got a report and this is what they've said, you actually are judged at that particular level. You're not given a chance to actually do anything else. The other bit of it is the money has actually been increased for the judiciary. They promised, they did, it's true. Absolute numbers. We don't need to actually get into a lot of stories around that. Number 4, which is important, and agriculture.
I hope number last.
There are so many, but I'll just stop with agriculture, then I'll come back later on with the others. On agriculture, number 1, they were able to register 5 million farmers in just 1 month. When they told farmers to register 5 million farmers, it's important, data is important so that we know how do we then intervene. That is just in 1 month, 5 million farmers registered. Number 2, provided 6 metric tons of fertilizer for the short train. Then I will go into the others. The price of fertilizer has come down from 7,000 to 2,500. It's subsidized. Of course, somebody else is paying for it. But we are trying to produce food so that then we answer his question about we are sending money home. So we are seeding production as opposed to what we were doing before. The other thing is we've done 3,536,162 bags of fertilizer given out to farmers. We are expecting a whopping 44 million bags compared to last year's 32. Again, this is absolute data by the same institutions that you supported when we were on the other side with you. And lastly on this, I would just like to say this. It speaks about the cost of living. Do you know that, and we get a lot of data very wrong, because if you're going to look at the cost of living solely by the packet, the price of the packet of flour, you get it wrong. First of all, my people from the West, from the far West, we literally are dictating a lot about how this country looks. You know, Kenya is so luya in very many ways, because you look at the coat of arms, there is a cock there, you just call it a cockerel or whatever. Kuna kuku hapo kwa coat of arms. Then every time we talk about the cost of living, people always talk about flour. So, as in that is how much our people will do. But I just want to remind you that only 20% of Kenyans consume sifted flour. 80% of those other people do what is locally processed. And do you know how much unga ya gorogoro is? It's actually 90 bob.
Okay.
So even as we talk about 178, 150, 80% of Kenyans who are paying 150 and 100 and the others are now doing. They are doing just 90 bob, 80 bob in other places. So clearly, let us not be very Nairobi-centric, very middle class thinking when we are looking at the nation.
Okay.
Because
all right, I'll have
people,
to stop you there, Arnold, because hapo kidogo unajua ni venye Mark Bichachi yako hapa. Mark Bichachi in Eldoret, having listened to Arnold Maliba's numbers, and it reminds me of something Moses Kuria said yesterday on Citizen TV, responding to my colleague Sam Gituku, and he said you're entitled to your own opinion but not your own facts. But then he gave us a figure for you know, he claimed that the price they were giving for edible oil is not the actual price, that it is in fact lower. So even the facts you're telling us about, kidogo Mark Bichachi, if we were to assess the performance of this administration in this year purely on the cost of living, what is your take?
Well, let's talk hard numbers, and I began by saying that it's a mixed bag. I understand that my friend Arnold would be hell-bent to show that it is a perfect score, and of course Fanyamambo will say that it's a perfect F or Z as he'd prefer. But the truth is that, number one, when you look at the dollar, for example, and this is a very important indicator, the dollar has moved from around 120 to 146 today. Now, that increase automatically means that a country which imports 2/3 of what it needs is going to have that much of an increase, not only on what we are buying, but also in terms of how much debt we owe. So there's that much increase in our debt based on the increase of the dollar. At the same time, you're also talking about a government that, yes, indeed, has given the budget back to the police, and the police are oversighting their own budget. This is also a government that has given out fertilizer subsidy, and many farmers have benefited from it, albeit that people are complaining about some how it has been distributed, and others the quality of the fertilizer. But the fact is that it has been distributed. But for me, one of the things that I would like to point out is that President William Ruto and his administration have decided to push Kenyans and ask them the hard questions. For once Kenyans are being asked, how much tax are you willing to give for a better country? That is a very important question.
I can hear. Sorry, Mark. I wasn't here. I didn't hear you for the last submission there. If you could just repeat that.
Okay. Yes, I was saying that President William Ruto, really, if we are to look at his score, his biggest score is the question he's asking Kenyans about how much tax we can pay. We're already talking about increased VAT to 18%. We're talking about NHIF changes. We're talking about NSSF changes. We're talking about the housing fund. So really, can Kenyans afford to bootstrap themselves into prosperity? That is the bigger question. But against that backdrop, and I'm putting many numbers here so that people can see when I talk about a mixed bag that it's a complex picture. The NSC has lost value in the billions in the last 6 months. So these are the questions that we've got to ask ourselves. We are truly in a mixed bag, partly because of what Kenya Kwanza is doing, partly because of what Kenya Kwanza is succeeding to doing, and partly because of the global economic downturn. By no means would I agree with Arnold that the cost of living is better, but also, this is my final statement on this, that President William Ruto has deferred from the norm that we got from Kibaki and Uhuru. In other words, they implemented, for example, universal primary education in the first 1 year. President William Ruto has implemented more taxes and dealt with debt and such issues more than any other president before him. So we do not have a blueprint to say what exactly is going to come out of it. But the truth is, we are in uncharted waters. It's a mixed bag, and we'd be lying to Kenyans if we told them it's absolutely bad or it's absolutely good.
All right, so we need to take a break, Fanya Mambo, but we'll come back with you, and I'll get your response to what Arnold is saying. And as someone unaongea kama mtu anaishi town, on the other side of this break, we get his response.
Okay, a bit closer, yeah.
Excuse me.
Could you take a picture?
This is my phone. No, please.
Benefits of ordering with Glovo. Glovo allows you to order anything you want at the comfort and convenience of your home. Craving fried chicken or pilau or pizza? Easy and simple. Order on Glovo today. Glovo. Order anything, we deliver in minutes.
With Glovo, you've got the city at your fingertips. Unajisikia kukula kitu different? Order Glovo. I'ma treat the family with a sweet surprise. Download Glovo and get anything you want in minutes.
This week on The Trend, we have yet another fantastic show lined up just for you.
Let me take a look. Oh Lord, yo, what's up? It's Kenya Ruga out here.
You're my bestie. Mama Shanane, shaky your waist.
Simsima, who's got the keys to my bima? I'm on another level, ni akili tunapima. Gashi.
Osoro on the socials, DJ E on the decks, hosted by yours truly. It is bound to be one heck of a show, and we want you to check it out. Make sure that you hang out with us from 10 p.m. on Friday, only on XTV.
We are calling you to be part and parcel of the fastest growing satellite town in this city. We are developing and building a beautiful Achievers Gate. This is a chance that you cannot afford to miss. Call this number 0790 300 300.
I was about to say I'm live from Head Center. Fanya Mambo on the other side of the break. So Arnold Maliba backed his statements with numbers, figures. Do you have any numbers, figures to back your statements? Because he says, tunaongea pa kwa Twitter, makelele juu tunaishi Nairobi.
I think to start with, I don't know what happens to Kenya Kwanza adherents. You come and reduce fertilizer for Kenyans from 7,000 to 2,500 and shout so much about it. And then to the same farmer, you take away from them what was high school subsidies, so that a parent who was paying around 26,000 in school fees for a year at a high school is now paying in excess of 60,000. What is wrong with your brain? You wake up tomorrow. This is the first time.
Oliver, how will you allow such a fallacy?
No, you had your time. No, you had your time.
Interject.
Protect me.
No, wait, he's on a point of order.
The high school capitation of 22,000, I think 22,500 was never removed. What he's doing here is selling snake oil.
No.
And you shouldn't allow such an statements to go unchecked.
Let me tell you, Arnold Maliba.
What has the government done away in high school, for example?
Arnold Maliba.
Are you talking about varsities?
The challenge we have,
or are you talking about high
the
schools?
challenge we have with him is that right now he's not putting any child through high school.
That is a lie.
To any parent, to any parent watching us on national TV today,
you don't
they'll
need
tell
to be
you
a
one
cook
thing.
to tell bad food. You see, I don't have to have a child in high school to actually know when he's telling a lie.
You see, let me tell you.
Which subsidies are you talking
just
about?
This April and May, headmasters were in Mombasa complaining about money that has not been sent to schools.
What capitation?
Yes. And they were complaining. I'm not speaking for them. They were complaining on national TV.
So the
because it doesn't get
removed.
there and it is not there.
If there's a delay,
and what is
delay in the disbursement is not a denial.
It's not a denial. Yes, I agree with
I
Arnold
think
on that one.
Let's be fair. Let's be fair and agree on one thing. You see, Arnold Maliba is reading a UDA script which he has to keep hammering to us by force, whether we like it or not.
You don't have to be ad hominem because it was about numbers.
Capitation, I agree with that.
You don't run away from facts by going ad hominem.
It's not a denial.
Let's get there. I know we will not agree, but I will speak my part. This is the first time in a very long time when I am finding myself in groups of WhatsApp to raise school fees for university students. Because the cost of university education in this country has become supernormal. So what is the use of coming to lie to us with a fertilizer subsidy and then take away more than you have given us from the university fees? I'll continue. There was fuel subsidy, which to some of us was helpful. So you come and give us fertilizer hivo kama kuku and then take it away from the fuel side because fuel is now more expensive than we have ever imagined in the past. Now, everything that Kenya Kwanza ever gave you with the right hand, they took 3 times with the left hand. And if you do your calculations, they come and tell you all their campaign promises were on, we are not going to incur any more debt for this nation. Right now, within a period of 1 year, and he's here, he can tell you, within that 1 year, they have borrowed more than the Jubilee government borrowed in 1 year. And more than when the President Kibaki borrowed in 1 year. So they're borrowing a lot of money. In fact, at some point, and I like the climate change you spoke about, the President came and said verbatim that you would rather die of debt than be poor. So now they have changed from we are not going to borrow any more money to borrowing so much money to the point that you'd rather die of debt than be poor.
At what point did you say that?
I'll get you the clip and you have them. But all Kenyans also have them. So all you need to understand
I haven't come across it though.
All you need to understand is one thing. This administration, out of what he's telling you in the millions and the billions, trust you me, they have taken away from Kenyans more than they have given to Kenyans. We've never seen such a high burden of taxation. And at the same time, it's happening at a point when the government is also borrowing so much more than previous governments within the same period of time. So I wish
Can you back that with numbers?
I will give you the numbers right now. So, but all you need to know is that what they've borrowed in the last 1 year is more than what the Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta government borrowed in the first year in government. And is more than what Moi Kibaki borrowed in the first year in government. And this is what we need to check. So you cannot come and tell us about so many other things that you think this administration is doing. But at the same time, you don't want us to come and say the truth where the truth is to be seen. This tax burden has never been seen. And let me tell you, because they keep telling us that developed nations are taxed. It's not a problem. The problem we have is the person you're taxing is already underpaid. Most of the people who earn 20,000 today, they needed 35,000 to survive. If I lived in an economy where I made 100,000 shillings a day, I wouldn't mind paying even 60,000 in taxes because I know I'll make another 100,000 tomorrow. The problem we have is the person you are taxing today is not even able to meet their basic needs. And adding more taxation on them is not helping this nation. So we need to get to the point where we say, wait a minute, Kenyans need to have some little disposable income. Then when we allow them to have some little disposable income, they are able to grow. Otherwise, right now, all you need to do is work for food, shelter, and clothing. Food, shelter, and clothing the month over. When will these people ever develop themselves? Because the taxation burden is too high. In fact, I saw a joke on Facebook. People are saying, why don't we change sides? So that the government takes the salaries and then we take the taxes. Maybe it will be easier that way.
All right. Arnold, kuna mtu hapa amenitumia message because you are giving us figures, right?
Yeah.
And ngoja wacha let me pull it up. He says, Aki, don't forget to mention tokens za stima. Akiniambia hivyo, yesterday we had a Business Daily put up commodity prices. Let me just give me a second to pull it up here on my phone. Here I go. Here we go. So what has gone up, what they tell us, the Business Daily, and you can find them on Twitter at BD_Africa. It tells us from the sampled goods, only cooking oil and LPG reported lower prices over the 1-year period. Maize flour, August 2022, 197 shillings. As of August 2023, 213 shillings. Potatoes, 1 kilogram, 80 shillings. August 2022, now retailing at 85 shillings and 95 cents. Beans, 1 kilo of beans, August 2022 was retailing at 149.9 shillings, now retailing at 185 shillings and 27 cents. Cooking oil tumesema imeenda chini. Hii inatuambia from 386, sorry?
That is BD, right?
Yes.
What's the price for unga? 2 kgs?
197, from 197 in August of 2022 to 213.
We will start right there. We will just start right there.
Nilipatia numbers ngoja, sijamaliza. Cooking oil. August 2022, 386 has gone down to 315. Sugar imepanda from 135 to 218 shillings. Spirits, for those who imbibe, 384 to now 418. Kerosene, 129 to 170. Stima ndio hizo tokens wanazungumzia 796 in August of 2022 to 1,344 now. LPG imeshuka from, and this is 13 kilograms, from 3,103 to 2,709.
Let's start from this. I do not know where BD, as in BD, that is Business Daily, got the figure about flour. Let's start from there. Because whereas I was born in this city, my great ancestors were people from the far west. So I would know anything about flour very easily. Last year, and I was in this studio when we were speaking about the cost of flour last year, even when they brought in a subsidy, people were looking for the 200 shillings flour, and it was not there. You remember that was news, it was a scandal. So where Business Daily, a very reputable...
Are you talking about that one, you said 200 or 100? Okay.
The 100 flour. Remember when Munya was the CS for Agriculture? And there had been a subsidy,
yes, I recall.
Leading to the elections. And we couldn't get flour for 200, and the media houses were going around beaming. So wherever the Business Daily got that is Majitu's story. Those are numbers, I don't know where the author got that.
But a reporter at supermarket saying.
Well, you could do, in fact, they can actually go
I have an app on my phone, I can pull it up.
Well, I will not send them to Ruiru because I don't come from Ruiru. I will send them to a village called
Okay, let's see. I'm on my Carrefour app. It says 2 kg, Jogo 186. Soko 182, Pembe 175, Amaze 222, Ajab 197, Hostess 235.
So I can actually, let me just take you through a few. Number one, the cost of unga last year in September, at the time of swearing in, was 230 shillings. That is a fact, it's out there. Today, like I said earlier on, agorogoro flour, because 80% of Kenyans who eat ugali use posho meals and the other things. Only you and I, we city people, do the packet one. So we've moved away from the 150 that people were paying in villages, 170 to 200, actually for a posho meal flour, to now just 90 shillings. That is substantive. It's not the 230. Even at a time when we had a subsidy, we do not have a subsidy now. It's still September like last year. It was 230 last year. It's now those numbers you're actually talking about, under 200. So that is significant. So whether it is through the harvest, whether it's through whatever, it is down. Because last year was a time like this. But I need to go back and just say this. You know, my father in 1981 bought a Renault Rojo at 12,000 shillings. That was almost 700,000, 800,000 shillings. So if I were to have 12,000 shillings today and try to buy a Renault today, I might not get it. His argument that what Uhuru borrowed in the first year is not the same with what William is borrowing is actually a fallacy based on that, because it's not the same thing. How much debt was Uhuru paying? How much debt was Kibaki paying? So those numbers are not the same. So when you look at numbers from one side, and I've said, if you torture data seriously, it confesses to anything you want. And he's been doing serious torturing. So I'll go back to what you are.
On that one, just
guys,
before
I will ask both of you to hold it there. Yeah. Mark Bichachi of living. I know you said it's a multitude of factors, and I mean, it's a mixed bag, and you talked about foreign affairs and all of that. But do Kenyans really care? Is it ultimately, at the end of the day, does it all come back down to cost of living?
Bill Clinton is famous to have said that it's the economy focus. So I've changed one word there. The point is that the economy matters, and it matters in a big way because it's the only thing that affects all of us. When we go to the pump, there is no UDA pump, there is no Azimio pump, and there is no pump written talks. So when we talk about real numbers, so for example, it is true that the government has borrowed 1.5 trillion. But that borrowing, I cannot sit here and browbeat this government for borrowing when I'm the same person who defended Uhuru Kenyatta for borrowing. That's not the problem. The problem has never been that Kenya borrows. The problem is that when the person goes to pay for unga, if they're feeling pain, and on top of that there is a pain in terms of their salary and what they have been deducted, then we have to talk in real terms and say that the government has borrowed 1.5 trillion. It is true. The cost of electricity has gone up. It is true. The cost of fuel at the pump has gone up. It is true. These are not anti-government statements. The government now, and let me help Arnold, needs to explain to Kenyans that the pain I am feeling today, how will it benefit me tomorrow? When you give me 1.5% tax on housing, how is it going to benefit me tomorrow? Tell me as a Nairobian that when I'm going to pay my rent a year from now, because there'll be affordable housing, I'll be able to have cheaper rent even though I cannot access affordable housing. Tell me that as the taxes have increased, when I go to the hospital, as I did just about 10 days ago, I will not be given a bill where I need to call my father, my grandmother, and raise my grandfather so that they can raise for me to be able to pay the bill. The taxes I'm paying today, will they alleviate my pain? And that is the part of the story that is missing. Kenyans are facing challenges, and instead of talking about solutions, both Fanyamambo and Arnold are fighting about numbers, and my stomach doesn't know numbers. My stomach only understands hunger. What this government needs to speak, and speak soon, is one, stop blaming Uhuru Kenyatta. That's over and done. Explain to us how the pain we are going through is going to yield a dividend, a benefit for me and my generations moving forward. That is the question. Tell us how the dollar, as you've let it to float as it is, which is a good thing, it is international best practice. As you've left it to float, how is it going to benefit me as a Kenyan at the end of the day? When you've increased the cost of universities fees, how then are my kids, who I hope have a better education than I did, how are they going to do it? Let's not bicker about numbers that we can read. There's no one here who's watching me on a TV station, on that TV set, that does not pay electricity. So when we argue about the cost of electricity, they're not dumb. They remember what it was last year. But tell me, will I get better quality electricity? Will it stop frying my equipment every time it goes off and on? These are the issues that matter. Tell us, Arnold, the National Stock Exchange, the Nairobi Stock Exchange, how will we increase its value? Tell us that this agricultural boom that we are expecting, how is the value addition going to happen? When we begin to answer those questions, then I'm willing to have this conversation. But this childish bickering about numbers, I'm not party to it. That is not what my mother is sitting at home to watch me do. We are here to give solutions to this country, and this country is in pain. And if I say this country is in pain, it's anti-UDA, then I'm sorry, you don't understand democracy. Democracy is the ability to speak freely so that you can give me solutions. I'm crying for solutions.
All right, and so no, let Fanyamambo come in at this point. Fanyamambo, what do you say about what Mark is saying? I mean, the opposition is opposing just to oppose, but they're not offering up their own solutions.
I started by saying what every other Kenyan is going through, and the disconnect that exists between what Kenyans are going through and what the government is doing, so that when we go through a public participation, and every Kenyan says we do not want any other increase in any other commodity, including electricity, their government presents us with a finance bill that does the exact opposite of what was said in public participation. I have always challenged these people on
You're
national
playing fast
TV.
and loose with every other Kenyan.
I have always challenged this administration to raise their hands and tell us one video clip of where Kenyans said we are okay with more taxation being meted upon us. What I am trying to say is that for every Kenyan earning today, the taxes upon them and the needs upon them are higher than what they get on a daily basis. So Kenyans are underpaid but overtaxed. And that is exactly what Mark Bichachi has been trying to say here. I was telling him because now we are at NTV.
As briefly as possible, because I'm on borrowed time.
Yeah, because we are at NTV, the Business Daily is a very credible paper. I invite every Kenyan to go and read the Business Daily of March 24, 2003. It explains how this government has borrowed 1.2 trillion, sorry, in 9 months. It's there, it's on the Business Daily, it's a very credible paper. So that I'm done with, because those are not the figures that matter to me. What matters right now, Arnold, for this administration that you so badly defend, and when I go out there, is not those big figures, is not those things I was telling you. For the ordinary Mwananchi, is how this administration makes them feel. And right now, what Kenyans feel is pain at the pump, pain at the university, pain. The only place they felt a small relief was when they were putting fertilizer in the ground. And then they went back home and found that everything else apart from that fertilizer has gone up 3 times. So this is where this administration needs to address. That every other thing has been a pain, and then there's been a little pat on our back, and you're told that part is called cheaper fertilizer.
All right. Arnold, your last word. And my question to you is this, what Mark is saying, you know, somebody said Rigathi akilala naota na Raila akiamuka hivi Raila.
He's not on set.
No, I'm just saying, is this government you know what is this doing a disservice to itself by not focusing their public communication on the issues that, you know, the pinch, where the shoe pinches.
You know, both Mark and my friend Kinuthia here want to tell the whole nation how I am the government spokesperson. I wish I were the government spokesperson.
You will be.
Thank you, from your mouth to God's ears. But then I have chosen at this age in life not to be, you know, when we were young, we were told the children of Israel fought the Amorites, they did everything, the children of Israel crossed the Red. So normally I would ask myself, at the Redeemed Gospel Church in Huruma, as kids in Sunday school and even teen class, where were the adults of Israel? So I have chosen to be an adult in this particular instance and not just be pointing out issues that are wrong. As a person who aspires to one day lead this particular country, this is the time for me to actually know how government works, because it's easy to actually oppose. Having said that, I need to say this. Number one, Mark, I think, contradicts himself. When we started off, he said that this government has robustly spoken to its people, and that is the reason why there is what Tom Wolfe calls the mild optimism. Mild optimism. So the things Mark wants me to actually be speaking to are not subject to this particular show. This show is a review of what they have done. For the longest time, we have had people ask, including Kinuthia here, that what have they done? What have they done? Once we start to list, they tell us, no, that is not it. Tell us what you will do for us tomorrow. You have been asking, what have they done? Once we start to list it, you now have gone around. I'll actually answer that again. A false line and not informed. I don't want to use the I word. So this is it. That number one, what Mark is asking, the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is doing it very well in all meetings out there. The President himself is robustly doing it, and Mark has attributed to that. So the President is speaking confidence to the people. The President is explaining how things move around there. So that they have done. what we are doing on this show was actually to do a review, to go back, and that is why numbers really matter. Even though he has actually perfected the art of torturing numbers so that they confess to what he has. So, first and foremost, I need to move forward and say this. He's spoken about university fees having been hiked and everything else. You know, free market, we are a free market economy. Market forces do not lie. So when you see how private universities charge, they do not do that because, and he actually is a parent in a private school. So when they do that, they don't do that because it's for you or even the other people, it's a good thing to actually pay more. That is normally, a lot of times those are the prevailing rates. Do you know that the last time university fees was actually reviewed in this country in 1989? You can prove on that. You cannot pay a lecturer, you as an individual, 49,000 shillings, 60,000 shillings cannot afford you what we've been doing. It's been heavily subsidized. And that is why universities have actually been having all that burden. We are talking about pending bills. So let's also, you know, the danger of a single story is that you pick figures from one side and project it as a bad problem. The new system that is being put on, he's talking about...
Okay. So Arnold, I don't want you to get into too much detail.
No, can I finish on the university thing?
Quickly.
What we are having is actually just explaining the new system because it's actually targeted at ensuring that we just don't do the traditional capitation.
Don't afford university.
That's not true. Which class is he talking about? The only class that is subject
to
this is
the
2022.
If you're not in a WhatsApp group.
Because there is a challenge with actually adopting a new system. Okay. That's the truth. The one thing is that I have explained that even on this show before, and it hurts me to actually come back here and lecture a very brilliant young man like Kinuthia here on things that are out there. But because he's hell-bent on actually projecting, the end to his story is already defined. How he gets there, he doesn't matter. He will meander around until get to a place where he actually then bastardizes this particular government, even if it is something good. So can we move away from actually selling these things? One of the reasons why Kenyans are now slowly starting to actually feel optimistic is that doom and gloom was preached. None of us knew we will finish 1 year. We were told how this country will be looted to the ground, things will be razed, and now he's actually even accepting that we actually have held together. The truth is that a lot of the doom and gloom being preached by the prophets of doom like Kinuthia here.
I'm not a prophet of doom.
And the preachers of lamentation. Because for him, you know, he's like the choir master of the book of Lamentations.
Please don't disparage Fanyamambo's character. But Mark Bichachi, your last word on this conversation.
You know, one of the most sacrosanct things in developed countries that people don't bicker about is the economy and its numbers and the military. Now, I thank God we are not bickering about the military. We are bickering about the economy. The economy has indicators that show us when it's overheating and when there is inflation. That is not what we are here to debate. What we're here to debate, actually, is to shine a light on what the government is doing right, what it is doing wrong, and what it can do better. That is the active duty of any citizen. And my message to my president, to my deputy president, and even the fellows in talks at Bomas, remember the pain of a Kenyan. And when you begin to address it, and not just the politics of it, and not the name calling you do all the time, when you address our pain and begin to tell me what an extra 2% tax on VAT is going to do for me, then we are on the right path. Don't tell me that it will pass by hook or by crook. Tell me that I will prosper by hook or crook. Then we're on the same page. So when I say that this government has a mixed bag, I am saying that anyone who puts on their spectacles like I do and remove the tint of UDA or the tint of Azimio, then we will have an objective conversation which this country badly needs. A conversation about whether should we agree that we're no longer agricultural and say we are industrial? That is the question. Should we ask the question that should we increase our exports and reduce our imports? Those are the kind of conversations that we need to have so that they can add color, perspective, and insight that is useful to the people who are listening to us. Bickering, Mark Bichachi, and I hope a lot more Kenyans, let's step away from it.
All right, thank you. It's a good note on which to end. Lazima nimalizie hapo.
If that is it, if you allow. As we do everything else, the most important thing that this government needs to do, like all other successful governments that have failed to do, is to realize that this is governments in Kenya buy biros for 200 shillings that we buy for 20 shillings. Until we address wastage in government, it doesn't matter how much taxes you're going to collect. When you look at how much government buys a vehicle for and how much the same vehicle goes for in the market and everything else that every government...
Not to say that you're not reasonable. Who's joined us from Eldoret, our Eldoret studios. Thank you for joining us. My name is Olive Burrows. Have yourself a good night.